Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, and Green Means Go is going to talk about it. Welcome back to the Green Means Go channel. It's your host, me, and today we're talking about court storming, specifically in college sports. You don't see it in the NBA. Why is that? Because teams aren't ranked? Because upsets don't really matter? I don't know. And keep in mind, this is going to be specific to the sport of basketball. I know that sometimes the field is rushed after a football upset, and inherently, I think that's safer just because the field is much larger. Players are in pads and helmets, so you don't see as many injuries from storming the field as you do in storming the court. Today's video is all about discourse. We're going to talk about Kyle Filipowski yesterday. We're going to talk about Caitlin Clark a few months ago, and we're going to talk about what schools are doing as of now to prevent this from happening and what they should be doing in the future. We'll start with Caitlin Clark, and this incident happened back in January, and it was a bit bizarre. Ohio State wins the game, and they kind of semi-rushed the court. It wasn't overwhelming in terms of participation, considering what we've seen in the past from college athletics. And Caitlin is trying to run off the court, and she collides with this fan, or the fan collides with her. I don't want to place blame on anyone in this situation. Yes, I do. It's actually the fan here who's running, trying to film the whole thing. And that begs the question, where's that video? Okay, she's clearly recording. Why have we still not gotten access to a first-hand primary source video of the collision? And of course, when you have a player of Caitlin Clark's magnitude, everybody's going to talk about it. Everyone's going to weigh in on it. And I think the overwhelming consensus was we got to do something to stop these events. And again, this one was a bit bizarre just because it was so unintentional. It was so random. It was just one person running into one person by themselves running into one person rather than a mob. So much different than what we saw yesterday with Duke and Wake Forest. Now, yesterday, Duke gets upset by Wake Forest and the student section rushes the court. And I immediately got a text from ESPN, a notification that said Kyle Filipowski has been injured due to a court storming. And, I didn't see any of the replays. I didn't see any of the video footage. I just assumed, how dare this occur? How dare this happen? We have to do something. First, Caitlin Clark, and now Kyle Filipowski, one of the biggest names in college basketball. And I was scrolling Twitter this morning and I saw this angle, and I think it is very interesting. And Green Means Go, okay? We're not going to shy away from controversy. We're not going to shy away from hot takes. We're always going to be a little bit contrarian, just to have some discourse, just to have some conversation. That is what you can expect from this channel, and if you've been here a while, you know that. And when I watch this replay, I want to break it down a little bit for you. So he is walking, and there is a mob of people running at him. And I posted a very short TikTok highlight of this clip and my very short thoughts, and I kind of got flamed in the comments. A lot of people saying this is the worst take ever. You should have to stop making videos. You have no intel. Your IQ is 36. Like, it was brutal against me. And I didn't even make that big of claims in that video. So in this video right now, I'm going to explain my thoughts a little bit more in depth than I did on that TikTok. So the first thing is, I don't blame Kyle Filipowski at all for whatever occurred from this angle. Okay, that's the first thing. He has a right to be on the court as a player. He has a right to get off the court safely. That is that. Okay, so let me lay that out first. However, people saying he did not trip a fan, that is factually incorrect. That is a lie, okay? Now, whether he did it intentionally or not is a conversation we can have. He did literally trip a fan, okay? Like, that is not for debate. By definition, that is what happened. Now, am I going to sit here and say that I believe Kyle Filipowski did it on purpose? I don't know. Okay, and I don't want to say yes or no because I don't have any data that supports it either way. I'm saying that there are two things that could occur. If I'm Kyle Filipowski in this situation, the first thing is I see all the fans rushing. I'm going to shell up. I'm going to sit like this, and I'm going to wait until things calm down and I can get off the court safely. All right. The last thing that I'm probably going to do is just continue walking through people sprinting. He's walking and somebody's running. Likely the runner is going to win. So he makes the decision to walk, which he is well within his rights to walk off the court. And I just think that fight or flight kicks in just a little bit. And when you are walking and you see someone running at you, you either brace for impact or you do whatever you can to impede their momentum. And sometimes that means sticking out your foot to trip them, okay? And so people are going to watch this clip and they're going to say, he's just walking. He is just taking steps. How dare you say that he was intentionally trying to trip him? And I'm not saying that, but when you watch this video, it looks as if Kyle Filipowski sees the guy, braces for impact, and sticks his foot out, okay? And I'm just saying that another realistic response would just be to freeze, okay? And brace for that impact rather than trying to trip. So do I think, if I had money on the line, do I think Kyle Filipowski was trying to trip that guy? But do I blame him? No. I think Kyle Filipowski is well within his rights to do whatever he can to get off the court safely. And if he thinks he needs to trip a Wake Forest fan rushing the court, then more power to him, okay? I'm not saying I wouldn't have done the same thing. But to say that he is completely, quote unquote, innocent in the fact that he did not trip him, I'm not sure about that. But I am saying I do not blame him for this action. However, I would also like to note that once Kyle Filipowski starts falling, there is a Wake Forest fan who comes up and kind of gives him a little push or punch to the back. Obviously, that is completely uncalled for, and there's no way in the world I could or even would defend that. So did Kyle Filipowski trip him on purpose? I don't know. If he did, do I blame him? Not one bit. So what rules are in place to stop stuff like this from happening? Right now, the only penalty for storming the court is fines, and it's on a conference-by-conference basis. So what would happen yesterday if that event that we saw at Wake Forest was finable? We would see Duke getting paid X amount of dollars from Wake Forest as sort of, I guess, an apology, an olive branch, if you will. But not only is every conference different, it is different on a wide margin. So the SEC's first offense is $100,000. Second offense is $250,000. And if fans storm the court for a third time, it is a $500,000 fine. Now the Pac-12 is a similar scale, but a much smaller note, 25, 50, and 100. The Big 12 does not have a hard and fast rule, but it did fine UCF $25K this last January. The Big East is nothing more than a slap on the wrist with a wet spaghetti doodle, $5K. The Big Ten does not have any fines until the third offense, which if you think about it is almost impossible. If a team is beating a ranked team one time and then they're turning around and doing it again, they're probably going to be ranked. And so the third time that they beat a ranked team wouldn't even be considered an upset, and the fans probably wouldn't even storm the court. So really the Big Ten doesn't have a rule. But yesterday we saw an ACC game, Duke versus Wake Forest, and guess what? There are no fines in place, no rules for fans storming the court. Now, the biggest issue I have with this is who does it stop? Because fans, by and large, especially student fans, do not care what one organization has to pay another. If I was a student for Wake Forest, I don't care if my school has to pay Duke any amount of money. If I want to get out on the court for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and say, I stormed the court against Kyle Filipowski and the Duke Blue Devils when we beat him back in 2024, I don't care how much money my school's going to have to pay. Plus, I'm paying my school anyway, so just consider it part of my fees for being a student. The main issue with this is it does not address the problem, which are the students. So what do we do? To be honest, I have no idea what to do. Usually my rule as a human being is don't offer a criticism unless you have a solution. And I don't know if I can criticize court storming because I don't know what the solution is. The first and probably most obvious answer and most realistic answer is to provide more security. But if you add a few more security guards, you're going to have to pay them, one. And two, what are 5 middle-aged dudes going to do against 20, 30, 50, 100 semi-drunk college kids? The answer is nothing. I used to work at an auditorium as sort of a security usher type of a guy. And I will tell you, when a crowd of people wanted to do something, the last thing I was going to do was stop a crowd of people from doing something. So I don't think lining up a few more security guards is really going to keep students from staying in the stands. I guess the second option would be fine the fans themselves, but that seems really tedious and kind of a complete waste of resources. Somebody would have to sit there and review game footage and figure out which tickets left their seats and who got onto the court, and then how much money do you fine a student? Do you just add it to the bursar's office bill? Like I just don't think that's realistic. Along the lines of fining them, you could also ban them from future games, which again seems to bring up the same problem we had with fining them. How do you know if a player rushed the court? And then you put them into a system where they can't get tickets anymore, but then the school's losing ticket sales, and they're probably not going to do that because I would have to think that a fine for rushing the court in the long term is cheaper than losing out on ticket sales from fans who are going to sit third row, pay the money to sit third row at a game anyway. So I don't think banning students is an option either. The last option I could think of is just moving the students to the nosebleeds. But again, that brings up the same problem. What student is going to go to a game and sit in the nosebleeds when they had been sitting courtside. You can't do that, okay? You can't do that to the sport of basketball. The fun, the hype is seeing these students get into it behind the goal when the free throws are being shot, seeing them jump up and down when the score is tied with 30 seconds left. Like, you can't move the students to the nosebleeds. But if they were in the nosebleeds, it'd be significantly harder to rush the court after a game. Do I think student athletes should anyway be in danger after a game ends by fans rushing the court? Absolutely not. But do I see a solution to this problem? I don't. And I don't know what the solution could possibly be. I don't think there is a realistic solution. If you have an idea, let me know. But I think this may be something that's just part of the game. Even saying after the buzzer ends, you have to wait a certain amount of time before you rush the court seems unreasonable. Fans aren't going to be like, okay, guys, we can go get excited in 30 seconds, even though our adrenaline is at an all-time high right now. It just doesn't make sense. This one truly has me stumped. I usually have an opinion on most everything. This one, I got to stay off of. My heart says you can't stop students from storming the court, but my brain says we can't have student athletes risking injury every game if this were to happen. I guess if Duke would have just taken care of business, they wouldn't have, you know what, never mind.